For today's video, we're going to be playing a Noxus and Piltover aggressive list. This is one of the decks that I shared when I made my video showcasing 5 decks that you can play to get to master, and I had promised to get you some gameplay for each of those videos, and I'm a little bit late at doing that, so we're going to jump into a couple of games here. I am a little bit late at doing it, and I know it's been a while since my last video, but it's because I've been fighting an illness, and then I also spent the last 3 days casting a Dota Underlords event for OGA, so if you hear my voice sound a little bit weird, or it might even try to give out on me, well, you'll know why. Now, this is actually a bit of a tough call. We're gonna give these up. I think we're hunting for 1-drops. I would even argue perhaps that Jinx should have been a mulligan there, but we're against what's very clearly going to be a control list, and as such I kind of wanted to have something to refill our hand when the inevitable comes to pass, but the reality is we're running a number of 1-drops. Finding them and playing them is kind of the utmost importance. Now, this particular list is all about trying to deal as much direct damage to your opponent as possible, and then hoping that they don't have the ability to find healing. Interesting, I'm very surprised that they opted to not block there and give themselves access to the spell, but I'm not going to complain about it. Now we got some great sources of direct damage in our hand. We're going to try to set ourselves up for the open attack this following round. They're just banking spell mana, and we're going to do just that. Now, they absolutely will likely block one of these to get rid of it, but again, we're just worried about the direct damage that we can deal. And now we have to decide whether or not we still want to use this Brothers Bond, and I think the answer is no. I think we want to follow it by playing Jinx post-combat. So we're going to go ahead and let this resolve. We are still going to get a decent amount of damage done to our opponent. Again, the real concern will be healing and life steal, so
Jinx stands for Jinx.
this is fine. Alright, now on our turn, we actually will likely just play this Decimate. And when I say turn, I mean our chance to play cards here in this round. They're going to keep these back as potential blockers, but we're just going to go ahead and throw even more damage at our opponent while also trying to get our hand a little bit lower to potentially trigger Jinx. Before we fully commit, we even made him burn a card. Before we fully commit to emptying our hand here, though, we want to make sure Jinx is going to survive combat. Now, as you can see, our Jinx is not likely to survive combat due to the judgment, but they are going to still be taking the 2 from the Undermine, and they have no mana. So what we are going to do is just go ahead and use the rest of our mana to target the Nexus, because that's going to be 3, 5, 7, and that should be the end of this game. So again, as you can see, you're just trying to push as much direct damage as possible. I mean, it seems pretty self-explanatory when you're playing an aggressive deck, but seeing it in action, I think, is a big help. I've said in the past that this particular list is the closest to Time to Fight in Runeterra. If you're not familiar with Time to Fight, it's a deck that I was kind of well known for when I played the Elder Scrolls Legends. So this is very much in that vein. Yes, I know my Master's rank is pretty horrible, but I haven't had time to play. I was casting that Underlords event and just trying to rest as I fight this illness, but that's just one game. We're going to go play another one and just show the deck off a little bit more. Alright, so here we are with game number 2, and this is yet again going to be against a control list. Another Lux control list, which I'm honestly a bit surprised about, but Again, we want to find 1-drops. So we're going to keep the Boom Crew because it's the best 2-drop for this deck and one of the best 2-drops in the game, but we really want 1-drops, even more so because we are attacking this first round. So finding anything that we can get going is good, and we do in fact find that. Now, the big concern in this matchup, as opposed to the Ezreal matchup that we just played, is the presence of Ionia, because that means they are far more likely to have lifesteal or life gaining in their arsenal. So whether it's something like Life Blade, whether it's something like the gain health card, I believe it's like heal an ally for 7, things like that. We could play this second Boom Crew here, but
Everything's in place. Boom.
I actually want to take the open attack and just kind of ensure we get this damage in.
Swift and silent.
Yeah, because I had a feeling that some sort of blocker was coming down. We're going to go ahead,
Of course I'm ready.
play another Boom Crew for now and just bank this mana. We could have also maybe used Get Excited here, but I want to try to do that on their turn. We're kind of hoping that we pass back to us, right? Like we hope they play something and it passes back to us and we can play Get Excited. Alright, so again, there's the lifesteal that we were talking about. Now the issue is that in order to stop this, that we need them to not have something that they can play at 3 that keeps this alive, and I'm not sure that that's the way that we want to go about this. So instead, I think we're going to just take the damage and then answer back with a Decimate on our own, which will hopefully just negate the health that they gained. They're far more likely to have a combat trick that saves this than they are to have something that stops that. So if you're wondering why we're choosing this over just trying to remove this, that's the answer. Because we are kind of on a clock. Alright, now that's very disappointing. But not much we can really do about that. How do we want to handle this? Alright, we're going to go with the Battlecaster here.
They'll never see it coming.
As we try to push as much damage as possible, but them healing 8 was very disappointing for a number of reasons. Now, we have our Brother's Bond here, and we have to make the decision of, do we want to push damage, or do we want to trade with this to prevent the lifesteal? Because right now they are taking 3, 5, 8, which gets them to 11. Doing this gets them all the way down to 7, and then we can maybe finish them off with spells. So we're going to try this, but again, with 6 here, they can very easily just answer with further disruption. But the thing about this particular aggressive list is you kind of have to all in. I know it's going to feel terrible. It's going to feel very reckless at times, but there's really not much of an alternative. So they do go with a will for further disruption.
Backfired.
But we do get them down to 7. And so again, all we're really concerned about at this particular point in time, we're just gonna skip our boss here. All we're really concerned at this particular point in time is them healing. We have the Battlecaster, we have the Teemo. We also need to consider keeping a card back for this. Alright, we're going to play the Teemo here and see if we can bait out some more mana. We're going to likely end up pitching this one to the Get Excited, but this turn we either need to play the Decimate or the other two at the Nexus, because we want to get ourselves in a position where we can try to win with just spells. Now, I think in this particular moment, with only 2 mana, we want to try to take the most impactful route, and so that's going to be this. Because with 2 mana, they likely can't stop this. This gets them all the way down to 2. And then we're just going to lead off with this Decimate that they essentially have to have a deny for. But we have 8 here, so then we can also follow up with the Salesman if they have the deny. But right now we're going to challenge them and say, okay, do you have a deny? And they do, but thankfully that eats 4 mana. I expect a pass on their end. And then we're going to play the Salesman and just pray that they don't have a way to gain stuff. And if they don't have it, I would expect a concede. Oh, they're just going to pass. So we'll just pass and get the victory that way. So, again, just direct damage, kind of pushing it through. As I said before, the big thing with this deck and what you need to get yourself accustomed to is being reckless. It's going to feel awkward at times, but this deck is a definition of the kind of deck where you play to win instead of playing to not lose. A lot of mid-range decks, and especially control decks, you're very often just playing to not lose, keeping yourself alive until you hit those really big tempo swings. This is not one of those decks. You are playing to win every turn. You're trying to figure out, how do I produce the most damage? How do I prevent my opponent from stabilizing? You're trying to punish bad hands. You're trying to punish slow starts. And the more you capitalize early, the better off you are. So there will be times where you just get blown out. If your opponent has the right answers at the right time, or they have a bunch of healing, you know, you're just going to lose. That's the nature of the beast. But for the most part, if you're playing this deck properly, it's going to be a very reckless play style, and you just need to kind of get used to that. So anyway, hopefully this video helps you. I'm glad to be back to making content, and yeah, I'm just hoping my voice holds up throughout this recording session. I'm going to record a number of videos today, and I missed you all. So thanks for watching if you made it this far, and I hope to catch you watching the other videos.